Top 50 matches of 2025. We are finally here after many months of delay. I'm no longer fucking around. I'm getting right into it with some honorable mentions, which in chronological order go to Mike Bailey and Jake Something versus Violence is Forever from DPW 3rd Anniversary, December 8th. Daniel Garcia versus Mark Briscoe from AEW Collision, January 4th. Team 200 kilograms versus Maiko Satomura and Sari from Sareism Chapter 7, April 16th. Anarchy in the Arena at AEW's Double or Nothing, May 25th. Shun Skywalker versus Yamato from Dragon Gate, July 13th. Kyle Fletcher versus Dustin Rhodes, Texas Deathmatch in AEW Collision, July 31st. Darby Allin and Chris Statlander versus Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir, AEW Dynamite, October 1st. Hurt Syndicate versus The Demand in a street fight at AEW Wrestle Dream, October 18th. Konosuke Takeshita versus Hiroki Goto, New Japan Pro Wrestling Tanahashi Final Homecoming from November 2nd. And Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly at AEW Full Gear, November 22nd. Now on to the proper list. Number 50, Jon Moxley versus Daniel Garcia, AEW Collision, September 6th. As somebody who was a massive fan of both Garcia's face work and Mox's heel work, I was waiting for months for the leader of the Death Riders to take on the kid from Buffalo. It's a classic young guy rookie versus established heel veteran match, with Garcia getting his hope spots in against his clearly more skilled, stronger opponent. Kind of reminds me of the iconic Mox vs. Yuta match from a few years ago on Rampage. It's a gritty and bare bones match with focus being on Garcia's struggle to establish himself as on Mox's level. He's not there yet, but this match was a brief glimpse into the future of pro wrestling. Number 49, Jake Something versus Adam Priest, DPW Super Battle, October 19th. Nobody makes getting his ass kicked more satisfying to watch than Adam Priest. A title reign filled with dirty tricks gets ended by an unstoppable force. It's truly a perfect classic steel cage structure, with Priest having nowhere to escape from the might of Jake Something as he regains his title. Jake Something's selling and eventual comeback are timed perfectly, and the ending powerbomb off the cage is the type of insane spot the great reign of Adam Priest deserved to end on. Number 48, Darby Allin vs. Pac, AEW Full Gear. God, this style of match is why Darby is praised by sickos like me. Pac is the perfect psycho killer to be filled into the role of Darby Allin attempted homicide style of match. The joy of the match is pretty obvious. It's all about the insane physicality from two men obsessed with hurting Darby Allin equally. The Darby vs. Death Riders work produced some insane bangers that we will get to, but this match with the Bastard stands out as one of the best. Number 47, Nigel McGuinness versus Zack Sabre Jr., AEW/New Japan/Stardom/CMLL Forbidden Door, August 24th. A dream match that showed what an AEW cross-promotion show can be at its best. Nigel versus Zack wasn't just two of the best technical wrestlers of all time, though don't worry, it still very much was that level of excellence you'd expect, but it was also a true love letter to old-school British pro wrestling. Several of the spots in this match felt straight out of a Johnny Saint's World of Sport show. Old British wrestling is probably my biggest blind spot in wrestling, but even I could feel the love of the style just ooze through my screen. It's a type of match that just makes you sit back and appreciate the pure artistry of professional wrestling and all the different styles and genres that exist in it, while also just being a kick-ass match on its own. Number 46, Mercedes Moné versus Toni Storm, AEW All In, July 12th. Sometimes all it takes is two big-ass capital C characters to sell a match. This really felt like two masters of their craft going at it. There's a bunch of spots and little moments in this that, if done by two wrestlers any less committed to the bit, would fall flat, but when it's Moné and Storm, it just works. 4 Storm Zeros was probably overkill and definitely took me out of the match briefly, but simply seeing the unbeatable Moné finally meet her match was an amazing moment. All the sneaky pin combinations that got her out of trouble for over a year just couldn't get the job done this time. Two of AEW's best, showing off how good wrestling as a spectacle can be. Number 45, Mercedes Moné versus Jamie Hayter, AEW Double or Nothing, May 25th. Look, I promise the AEW entries will slow down soon. While the Storm match was a bigger event, had much more hype behind it, I believe that the Jamie Hayter got the better pure wrestling match out of Mercedes Moné. The Hoss wrestler archetype has always been my favorite to watch when it comes to Moné matches, and Jamie Hayter easily puts in her most inspired performance all year. On the other side, Moné is such a bump freak and works over Hayter's back with the type of vicious, if a little dirty intensity you'd expect from her. Jamie Hayter is one of the most underutilized wrestlers in the world, man. Need her to really get some opportunities sometime in 2026. Number 44, El Desperado versus Jun Kasai versus Takeshi Masada, New Japan Pro Wrestling's Crazy Fest, March 10th. I mean, fuck, dude, what a death match. How do I review this match? I don't know. It's a fucking gore fest of blood. The spots are insane. The raw, visceral effect of the blood is turned up to 100, and Jesus Christ, man, it's gnarly. One of those matches you're glad only comes around once in a while. Jun Kasai honestly kind of scares me a bit. Number 43, Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley, WWE Evolution, July 13th. While the men's division felt like it was a dumpster fire of terrible decisions, WWE's women's division was honestly pretty good all year, whether we're talking the world titles, the mid card, or even the tag division. Over on Raw, the roster was anchored by two women, Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, and this match serves as the finale of their great feud. The first half is filled with all the crisp, technical, and fluid counter wrestling you'd expect from these two, going the path of most good but standard WWE main events. Then there's an extended ref bump sequence that allows them to go insane with outside brawling and high spots that really gave you this extra boost the match needed to become something truly great. The chaotic feel of the match makes the finishing interference by Naomi cashing in feel less deflating and more like a sudden climactic finale. Great watch, and I do feel dirty for having a Fed match on here, but there's only one other one, so I think it's okay. Number 42, Meiko Satomura versus Sareee, Sareeism Chapter 7, January 23rd. Sareee is officially my choice for Booker of the Year, a true generational battle from two women who have made their names off of stiff-ass wrestling. Saree's final match was against Meiko. Saree's first match, was against Meiko, so to come out and face Meiko in a retirement run is such a fun, full-circle moment, one of those magical little bits of pro wrestling storytelling that just happens by accident. It was a relentless and brutal. Sareee ended up losing by just trying too hard to impress her mentor, with Meiko's no-nonsense approach being what outlasts her younger opponent. Number 41, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Ren Narita, New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax, July 19th. This is what the G1 Climax tournament is all about. Ren Narita was set up by New Japan as this generation's Shibata, but quickly got derailed because of House of Torture shenanigans. Zack Sabre Jr. spends the whole match trying to bait Narita into being the old technical wizard New Japan hyped him up to be. Narita, on the other hand, also baits Zack Sabre Jr. into engaging in the more gritty, brawling style House of Torture thrive in. Both men's prides lead to them falling into the traps of the other, leading to a really fun mix of styles. The tournament setting is perfect for setting up these little mini stories, and is a prime example of why G1 season is one of the standouts of the wrestling calendar for me. Number 40, Aja Kong and Chihiro Hashimoto versus Meiko Satomura and Manami, Sendai Girls, April 29th. The second best retirement match of 2025. This is the perfect send-off to Meiko Satomura, a celebration of her career and those she's inspired and mentored. Meiko is of course the focus and is as great as ever, still having plenty of stiff strikes and suplexes left to give. Chihiro Hashimoto represents the current ace, a student of Meiko that has risen to being a true rival, possibly on the same level as her teacher, even beating her in her final run. Manami represents the other end of the spectrum, the fresh, young wrestler, clearly with potential, but one that is very much not at the level of the other workers. And then there's Aja Kong. Aja is even older than the retiring Meiko, very much her big sister throughout their careers, arguably being Meiko's best rival. Aja Kong steals the show in this match, not just by being the unstoppable force that she always is, but also as the true emotional core of the fight. There's a genuine sadness to Aja's performance. She's basically losing the last true equal she has from her generation of Joshi. And of course, it's the Kong and Satomura stuff that is the highlight. It's a beautiful and epic conclusion to an excellent career. That's how you do a goddamn send off. Number 39, Miyu Watanabe versus Shoko Nakajima, Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling, August 17th. A perfectly paced match between two of my personal favorite Joshi wrestlers. On one hand, you've got Miyu, who is extremely technically diverse with her mat and chain wrestling whenever she taps into that aspect of her game. But what made it a striking contrast to Shoko's work is that while she's crafty in her own right, she's using her strength and power to muscle herself around or forcibly prevent Shoko from gaining position. On the other hand, Shoko is utilizing her speed and momentum to gain an advantage. The second act is mainly made up of Miyu imposing control, with Shoko getting a burst of offense to kickstart things. Interestingly, Miyu leans heel a bit, not fully, but it's clear the focus is on Shoko as the underdog, which is a role she plays perfectly. The third act is a beautifully built up bomb fest, with Shoko throwing everything she can before being put down. Great showcase for both women, Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling's best match of the year. Number 38, Meiko Satomura versus Chihiro Hashimoto, Sendai Girls, March 19th. While the tag match the month after had all the emotional weight, this singles match was my favorite from the entire Meiko Satomura retirement run. This is the passing of the torch moment for Meiko, passing on her own promotion title to one of the best workers in the world. It's a great match between the technique and striking of Meiko against the raw power of Hashimoto. Even when Meiko is in control for most of the match, there's always the threat that Hashimoto can just turn things around with a quick German suplex out of nowhere. The chain wrestling is great, and when we get into the big bombs, it kicks ass. Meiko Satomura has always been one of the most underrated wrestlers in the world, and I'm glad she got the send-off a legend like her deserves. Number 37, Hikaru Sato and Manabu Hara versus Astronauts from their self-produced show Fighting Detectives 3 from April 12th. The Astronauts' self-produced fighting detective shows are beloved by wrestling sickos like me and harken back to a forgotten time of shoot-style wrestling promotion, Battle Arts. These four guys beat the shit out of each other. Manabu Hara just laid in those fucking strikes. Takuya Nomura and Hara had a lot of chemistry with each other, but it's Abe and Sato who were cooking the whole time with hard hits, great grapples, and sublime selling. The way that Abe did the I'll be back Hidaka spot was the best I've ever seen it executed. This is nearly 30 minutes of raw fuck you energy, and I loved every second of it. Number 36, Tam Nakano versus Saya Kamitani from Stardom All-Star Grand Queendom, April 27th. The best retirement match all year came from Stardom with Tam Nakano versus Saya Kamitani. Pro wrestling is at its best when it blends character-focused storytelling with insane athleticism. Both women's careers are intertwined, with Tam Nakano's quick rise and fall due to injury, with Saya Kamitani having to reinvent herself to step up when Stardom needed it. The match has all the theatrics you'd expect from Joshi, but at its core is just two super close friends showing their love for each other by beating the shit out of each other. It's an incredible spectacle and is a very worthy ending for Tam Nakano, a career that honestly was way too short. Number 35, Yota Tsuji versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, New Japan Tanahashi Homecoming, November 2nd. Despite being on a show about Hiroshi Tanahashi, this main event was Yota Tsuji's last test before being allowed to become a top star. It's another student versus master match, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. Tanahashi is the reason Tsuji became a pro wrestler. Tsuji stayed away from Tanahashi, instead following the lineage of Tetsuya Naito. But now, he gets to finally face his idol, but there's a frustration to Tsuji's work. Yota can tell that this is not the Tanahashi from his childhood, the superhero, ultra-athletic, greatest wrestler in the world. So he, almost out of spite, tries to drag that last bit of greatness out of his old hero. Tanahashi responds by giving it his all, busting out all the old hits just to stay in the fight. Both men are on their way to the Tokyo Dome, but have to go through each other to get there. It's beautiful, it hits you in the heart, and it's some awesome pro wrestling storytelling. Number 34, Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes, WWE's Royal Rumble, February 1st. God damn it, I miss Kevin Owens. One of the only men to actually make a PG WWE hardcore match fun, he gives what little health he has left to this match. It's brutal with all the ladder bumps you'd expect, told within the story of Kevin Owens pushing Cody to a more ruthless side of him we haven't seen. It's a great story that gets overlooked, considering it never actually got progressed any further up until 2026. Now Cody is leaning more into that aggression, but it really did get dropped with all the Cena stuff. But if you're looking at it as its own, it's still a great match. Number 33, Will Ospreay versus Darby Allin, AEW Dynamite, December 18th, 2024. I mean, fuck, dude, what freaks. The maximalist approach to pro wrestling isn't my favorite, but when it's done at such a high level, I gotta give it to them. Usually Darby matches are best when he's against a sick freak heel that can toss him around and try and kill him. Allin still sold every hidden blade like death. The biggest strength in this match was probably the length. With the 20-minute time limit, it really forced them to tighten the act to its most compact, all-killer, no filler. I don't want every match to be like this, but when done properly, this shit is just electric and undeniable. Number 32, Athena versus Mercedes Moné, AEW Dynamite, April 16th. The two best women's wrestlers in North America gave us a taste of what could be an excellent feud. Both women walked in as the two favorites to win the Owen Hart Classic, and also were the best match on an insanely good episode of Dynamite that also included Josh Alexander versus Hangman Adam Page and Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita. It's tricky to book a heel versus heel match, yet both women are just so talented they made it work. It helps that Athena is one of the few women in wrestling that can match Moné's freak when it comes to taking nasty bumps that border on botch territory. It's a great match that really should be done down the road for the world title. Number 31, CM Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, WWE WrestleMania, April 19th. Look, WWE's main event style is not my favorite, but stylistic bias aside, the Night 1 main event was one of the better examples of a great big WWE match. Honestly, I think Roman was the highlight in this one as the big, obvious threat to anchor the pace of the match. Very brawl heavy as you'd expect, with big spots thoughtfully planned out between long stints of aura forming. The triple threat stipulation speeds things up a bit, and overall this is about as good as you can usually expect a WWE cinema style match with these three could be. Number 30, Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada, AEW All In, July 12th. Fun fact about this match, I was so excited for it that I made a whole retrospective on the career feud between Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada. Used barely any clips from New Japan, only a few GIFs, but TV Aishi still decided to strike down the video and pretty much ended my old channel. So thanks, Kenny. Thanks, man. Even though it wasn't your fault. 7 years since their last match, Okada and Omega deliver once again. This time, instead of the insane showcase of speed, power, and endurance like their younger years, both men take a much slower, more focused pace. Focus is all on Omega selling the abdomen injury, and Okada picking up apart Kenny with precision. They still go through their classic sequences, but this time with Okada playing heel and Kenny as the babyface, adding an extra wrinkle to their rivalry. I watched all 4 Omega Okada matches before watching All In, which I think made my experience with this match so much better. All the little details and callbacks make this a super fun watch, and in the end, Okada wins not because he's more skilled of a wrestler, but because Omega's body just broke down first, which is such an interesting end to a rivalry defined by peak athleticism. Number 29, Ricochet versus Mark Briscoe, AEW Double or Nothing, May 25th. This one is an 80s Memphis-ass match, a goofy stipulation with 2 over-the-top characters with big personalities, and a level of violence that is borderline uncomfortable. On the babyface heel spectrum, both Ricochet and Mark Briscoe are at perfect points to make this a great match. Ricochet's ability to control the crowd is on full display, denying the people table spots and getting the advantage via a low blow instead of a hardcore spot. Mark, for his part, runs the blade and fires back with big crowd-engaging comeback spots. Ricochet stooges and eventually wins, and the finish actually plays into the Anarchy in the Arena match later, which I think was a fun little touch. A great bloodbath that shows off the variety from within AEW as a promotion. Number 28, Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega versus Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita, AEW Grand Slam Australia, February 15th. This match is fucking stupid. It's 4 insanely over stars, a hot ass crowd, and 20 minutes of spots. That's all you need sometimes. The interconnectedness of the 4 competitors' history is what keeps the high pace PWG tag action engaging. The team of Ospreay and Omega coexist, but still have tension, which makes sense. I've seen them try to kill each other before. It's a spot fest, but it's also the 4 men in the world who are probably best at spot fests, making this a great lead-in tag to our next match. Number 27, Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, AEW Revolution, March 9th. This is how you blow off a feud. This is one of the smartest Ospreay matches I've ever seen. You understand everything you need to know about these two men during their entrances, both standing on opposite corners of the cage, the fans singing the Ospreay chants while Fletcher just stands there with his ears covered. It's one of my favorite looking moments in wrestling this year. Ospreay banging his ankle in the cage, while as a way for Fletcher to gain control is a great spot. The Spanish fly off the top of the cage was genuinely scary to watch, and Fletcher screaming, "I hate you!" before getting hidden bladed to finish the match was the cherry on top of his character's ascension. Awesome cage match from a company that I don't think has ever had a bad one. Number 26, Konosuke Takeshita versus Tomohiro Ishii, New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Dynasty, January 5th. Pure New Japan strong style that would bring a tear down Antonio Inoki's leg. Ishii and Takeshita get more shit done with more substance in 13 minutes than most get in 26. I'm convinced that this is the match that made New Japan go, yep, that's our next world champion, to Takeshita. The Tokyo Dome really brought the best out of these two, elevated both men, making everything just feel grander, which fits the over-the-top style of the never open-weight division very well. Number 25, Hangman Adam Page versus MJF, AEW Revolution, March 9th. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but I like this match more than their match later in the year for the title in August at Forbidden Door. This match felt like a main event world title bout despite it being a pay-per-view opener with no real stipulation. Both men put in 2 of their best performances, especially Hangman, who was working babyface but through his heel persona and his kind of heel moveset, which I really enjoyed as sort of a middle point between his heel run and his babyface run. Both guys felt like they had something to prove as they try to find their ways back to the world title. The whole match was built around MJF avoiding the buckshot lariat and working the arm, and Hangman's anger getting the best of him, falling into Max's traps. It took Hangman digging down and overcoming his own mental shortcomings to beat out the dastardly heel. It was the perfect starting point to kick off Hangman's redemption that would be the major theme for the rest of AEW's 2025. Number 24, CM Punk versus Gunther, WWE SummerSlam, August 2nd. It's probably not a good sign for your promotion when your 2 best matches all year come from a 47-year-old man, but in the short term, fuck, dude, Punk is still goated. An old school clash between 2 men matching their experience and strategy with sheer grit. Both men go through periods of getting their ass kicked. The gnarly stages of control establish the strategies of both men perfectly. Punk going for the arm of Gunther to limit the effectiveness of his chops, and Gunther trying to overpower Punk and dominate him with holds and power moves. All of the near falls and changes in momentum felt perfectly timed and logical. No theatrics or wasted movement, just 2 men trying to outwill each other in WWE's best match all year. Number 23, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hiroki Goto, New Japan Pro Wrestling Tanahashi Jam, June 29th. The sequel match to Goto's big moment in February. ZSJ gets his win back by literally injuring the man's elbow. I feel uncomfortable calling Goto's performance here selling, because he did genuinely get injured, but the emotion he conveys throughout the match is kind of heartbreaking. Clinging on to his moment in the sun on top as Zack Sabre Jr. picks him apart honestly just shows how a top-level pro wrestling title match can turn into a tragedy. Number 22, Mark Briscoe versus Kyle Fletcher, AEW Dynasty, April 6th. Arguably the peak of one of AEW's best rivalries all year, the biggest pro comes from their chemistry these two have in the ring together. Both are willing to go the extra mile when it comes to crazy bumps. There's a truly nasty apron brainbuster. A perfect heel versus face dynamic is on display as Fletcher does everything he can to avoid the cutthroat driver that beat him in their first encounter, which both keeps the crowd engaged in the character dynamics and gives the driver the credibility it deserves. These guys have had 7 amazing singles matches against each other. I think this one, to open up the Owen Hart tournament, was my favorite all year. Number 21, Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin, AEW All Out, September 20th. On any given night, there's a damn good chance Darby Allin and Jon Moxley are the 2 greatest wrestlers in the world. On its own, this match may not be top 25 worthy, but when you consider it as the first half of a bigger war between Mox and Darby, it elevates this match as well as the one next month at Wrestle Dream. It's a wild brawl with substance. Darby targets Mox's ear out of revenge. The violence doesn't come from particular spots, but just from the masochistic energy both men put on display. A full force sprint from bell to bell. While the ending was flat, it set the precedent for the future. Mox 9 times out of 10 will beat Darby, but can he break his spirit? Number 20, Violence is Forever versus the Grizzled Young Vets, DPW title fight in Vegas, April 23rd. A bloody street fight that takes my spot as the best tag match of 2025. The action starts hot with the faces jumping the heels as a nice counter to the previous installments of the feud. The VIF bleed early and they bleed a lot, which only sells themselves as the vengeful heroes. GYV, on the other hand, are excellent in control. These brutal but cowardly bastards choking out Garini, splitting the ring in half, and yet when it's time for Violence is Forever to get their badass comeback, Zach Gibson specifically sells it like he's looking at God himself. From there on, it's brutal spot after brutal spot, a pile driver off the apron through a table, as well as the types of swing from the fences, CTE-inducing headshots you won't see in any major company, only on the indies. The hot, intimate crowd getting behind every story beat, and 4 guys leaving everything they got in the ring. This is the shit that made DPW the best independent promotion in the world. Number 19, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Konosuke Takeshita, New Japan Pro Wrestling G1 Climax, July 30th. This match was simply everything you want it to be. 2 top 5 workers in the world going at it in the wrestling world's best tournament. The classic New Japan big match style has kind of lost its shine the past few years, but Zack Sabre Jr.'s technical brilliance is the perfect way to inject new life into the style. It's quickly a battle of technique in the early going, and as good as Takeshita is, he's naturally at a disadvantage against Sabre's elite level prowess on the mat. Things naturally progress to more of a striking battle, and here's where Takeshita does have some advantage. Those Sabre Jr.'s toughness and fearless willingness to walk into damage in order to gain a foothold make him a difficult guy to batter down. I love the final stretch here. Much of it was Sabre locking a choke on and holding on to it through hell and high water. Takeshita almost out of spite, trying to power out of the hold instead of just going to the ropes. It's this ego that would eventually be his downfall, as he had no choice but to tap out in an awesome first match in the feud that we've got 2 more entries out of. Number 18, Shiri versus Sari. Sari's, what is it, 7? March 10th? I don't know. I've stopped keeping track of the numbers when it comes to the Sariism show. I think I've said 7 like 100 times. If anyone ever wants to know why Joshi Wrestling is awesome, show them this match. The 2 most badass women's wrestlers in the game drag each other to hell and back, all the way to the 30-minute time limit. There's everything from crowd brawling to stiff strikes to technical mat wrestling. Shuri is desperate to target Sari's arm. Anybody who thinks Shuri struggles with showing emotion in her selling needs to go watch this match. Sari plays the hero role excellently and eventually is able to survive the onslaught from her opponent. A rare 30-minute time limit draw done right. I could easily have watched them go for another 30. Number 7, Hangman Adam Page versus Kyle Fletcher, AEW All Out, September 20th. A lot of people were underwhelmed with the second world title reign of Hangman Adam Page, and while I understand wanting him to have his massive conquering world beater run at the top, which sure would have been nice, but between the MJF and Moxley rematches, the feud with Samoa Joe, and this barn burner of a main event against Fletcher, I still found Hangman's run to be great. Fletcher did everything to prove he belonged in the same league as the champ in his first main event, and goddamn did he knock it out of the park. Both men played an excellent double-sided story. On one hand, physically, Kyle Fletcher has the edge. He's younger, faster, stronger than Hangman, but his downfall is his ego. The Proto-Star gimmick has almost taken over his mind, fully believing in his own hype, making up for any shortcomings with heel tactics. It's like a symbiote affecting him, but it's pink and has a Don Callis-shaped tumor attached to it. Hangman, on the other hand, with his years of main event experience, is out to slowly pick apart Fletcher's mind. Fletcher loses his cool, and that ends up being his downfall. This is the perfect main event story for where both men are in their career. Matching Hangman with a young, cocky opponent is the perfect counter for where he is in his arc. Beautiful and brutal main event pro wrestling from both these two. Number 16, Mascara Dorada versus Bandito, CMLL Super Viernes, June 17th. On the opposite end of how to do a big main event match, may I present to you hype moments and aura. Both men have demigod level athleticism and are some of the most charismatic performers in the world. Everything in this match was perfectly paced, perfectly executed. Sometimes I have a hard time getting into lucha matches that don't follow a strict heel versus face dynamic, but this match, simply put, fucks. It fucks so hard. Number 15, LeBron Cozone versus Adam Priest, DPW 3rd Anniversary Show, December 8th. This match just barely makes my cutoff period by 8 days, but man am I glad I get to talk about it. My favorite DPW match in the promotion's history was the perfect mix between the modern indie action and the classic 80s Southern storytelling. This match is the perfect end to Adam Priest's reign as the DPW National Champion. Months of cheating, fluke wins, barely getting by in his defenses, all with a cocky Southern draw, making him the biggest heel in the company. But on this one night, his luck ran out, and watching Priest slowly grow desperate as every cheap tactic he used in the past fails to put Kozo down is incredible to watch. It's all delaying his inevitable defeat and rise of LeBron Cozone as champion. One of the most satisfying blade jobs and one of the most cathartic championship victories I saw all year. Number 14, Yota Tsuji versus Gabe Kidd, New Japan Pro Wrestling New Beginning, February 11th. These two had a lot of fucking matches this year, mostly over the IWGP Global Heavyweight title, but for my money, this match from February was their best work together. Tsuji and Gabe Kidd are just the perfect counters to each other. Gabe, the unhinged and violent Gaijin, just starting to be accepted by the fans after years of being treated as an outsider, versus Tsuji, one of the chosen ones by the company, immediately accepted by the audience and pushed as the hero of the promotion. Tsuji with a quiet confidence, well put together, almost like he's been media trained. Gabe Kidd, on the other hand, is loud about his insecurities, constantly leaving everything on the mat to show that he bleeds New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's this clash of characters that leads to magic in the ring. Gabe Kidd drags the famous Japanese fighting spirit out of Tsuji. It's a time limit draw, which many may be upset about, but it drastically advanced both characters' arcs. Kidd gaining Tsuji and the Japanese fans' respect, and Tsuji silencing the doubters by proving he does have the heart to be New Japan's future ace. Number 13, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Konosuke Takeshita, New Japan Pro Wrestling King of Pro Wrestling, October 13th. In the finale to their trilogy, ZSJ and Big Soup put on their best work together. Both men are great technical wrestlers and great strikers, but each clearly have an advantage over the other in those realms. While in their first match, Takeshi's stubbornness played into Zack's game, this time it's Zack's ego that is his downfall. If ZSJ just played into his strengths, he would be unstoppable, but he's prone to one-upmanship, something that's always been a character flaw of his. Both men beat the shit out of each other, but the difference is Takeshi just straight up hits harder. One of Sabre Jr.'s best selling performances I've ever seen from him, Eventually, he goes back to targeting the arm, finally admitting defeat and going to his own game, but at that point, it's too late. He's given too much to his opponent. Takeshita is able to just smash through with raw fighting spirit adrenaline, crowning a new IWGP champion in the process. Number 12, Konosuke Takeshita versus Bandito, Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor, July 11th. Casually stealing the show on the biggest weekend for AEW all year is this incredible bout for the ROH World title. Bandito puts on an all-time sell job. This simply had the best babyface fire all year. Speed versus strength is a common formula for a match, but what happens when the speed guy is also crazy strong and the strong guy is also crazy fast? Turns out you get some goddamn magic. The closing stretch may be slightly too much for some depending on how the words fighting spirit sound to you, but again, it's Bandito's selling and Takeshita's ability to be a force of nature cover up some shortcomings. Bandito by the end doesn't just feel like a champion retaining his title, but like a knight slaying a dragon. Number 11, Hechicero vs. Mystico, CMLL Super Viernes, November 29th, 2024. It was truly a tragedy when I realized this match wouldn't be making it into my top 10. It is truly a bit of lucha excellence between the top two wrestlers in CMLL. Technically, this match shouldn't be on the list because it was about 2 days outside the cutoff, but I don't care. I didn't talk about this match last year, and I really want to. What I love about Lucha Libre as a style is the constant sense of one-upsmanship. Not just doing moves to win a match, but trying to prove a point that you are all around better than your opponent. Hechicero's brand of extremely fluid mat wrestling is a perfect obstacle to add to the Mystico main event formula. Mystico is at his best when he's working from underneath, and Hechicero just beats him down, constantly countering what little offense Mystico can get, and stretching him out with submissions. There's a palpable tension to this match. You know the big comeback is going to happen, but you have no idea when, with enough cutoffs and fiery selling to keep the audience engaged and on the edge of their seat. And when the big high spot finally do happen, it is electric. A good crowd can make a bad match good, a good match great, and a great match fucking legendary. Number 10, Mayu Iwatani vs. Shuri, Stardom All-Star Grand Creamdom, April 27th. These two go all out, and you can tell just how much the IWGP World title means to them, especially Shuri. This really is a big prize fight. The establishment of the IWGP Women's World title, while many don't really understand having another world title in Stardom, when Stardom already has their own set of belts, really just shows how far women's wrestling has come, especially in Japan, for them to get recognized by the fake IWGP. Shuri chasing the belt for months, and Mayu as the unmoving totem at the top of the Joshi Mountain. Shuri has some of the most brutal kicks in the game. Mayu is a top-tier seller and bump freak, and these two women just have unrivaled chemistry together. This is pretty much Mayu's last big match for Stardom before jumping ship to Marigold, which makes this the perfect finale to the promotion she's been in since day one. It's simple pro wrestling, but when executed this well and with this much passion, it simply doesn't get old. Number 9, Hangman Adam Page vs. Jon Moxley, AEW All In, July 12th. Can we stop and appreciate that we got this kind of death match? Real death match, not PG no DQ, but a proper death match in a major North American stadium show. I mean, Jon Moxley really is this generation's Atsushi Onita. Only difference is Mox actually does everything he can to put over the younger talent. This is the big culmination of the Hangman redemption arc. Finally, he turns back into the hero he's meant to be by going to war with the biggest heel in AEW history. But let's not get carried away with the theatrics and broad story implications. This match is violent. Nails, chains, chairs, glass are all used by the two best deathmatch workers of their generation. So many little things in this one. The fork that Mox used to scalp so many of his opponents in the past gets turned around on him in a great bit of karmatic justice. At the end, the bravado of Moxley wears off. The interference of the Death Riders being nullified, and when Jon realizes he's fucked and he has this look of terror in his eyes, we realize that the tiger that has been terrorizing AEW for the past year was made of paper the entire time, and he's forced to tap out in the second best moment in all of wrestling in 2025 for me. Number 8, Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin, AEW Wrestle Dream, October 18th. This is the perfect ending to Jon Moxley's heel run as leader of the Death Riders. At this point, he's lost everything. His title to Hangman, his pride with multiple submission losses. He's an injured predator whose particular brand of violence feels less badass and more desperate at this point. They keep doing mouth and hand-based limb work, which is so unique as well as fucking disgusting. The interference spots weren't just cheap ways to turn the tide, but actual highlights that made Darby's fight seem even more impossible. Then Moxley brings out a fucking aquarium and tries to drown Darby Allin. The crowd goes dead silent, like they're witnessing a murder. It's the exact reaction you'd want from this kind of spot. A lot of people complain about how little offense it took from Darby to make Mox quit. Sting comes down, beats up the rest of the Death Riders, gives Darby a bat, beats up Mox for a bit, Scorpion Deathlock, immediate tap out. But I kind of loved the ending. John realizes that he truly can't win this type of match against Darby, so instead of enduring the pain, he just quits like a coward. This match was insane, ugly, and messy, but also beautiful and poetic in a way only pro wrestling can pull off. Number 7, Hechicero vs. Bandito, Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, August 29th. Might be a controversial pick as the best match for both these men. They definitely have more acclaimed work, but I don't know. Personally, I just connected with this match much more than most people. These two might be the best match possible for each other. Bandito's selling makes Hechicero's submission work feel that much more brutal, and Hechicero is such a great base to perfectly time every one of Bandito's high spots. What I love most about this match is the pacing. It's a long one, even by main event standards, but it never feels like it drags, and that's because they keep on throwing in new pieces to the puzzle. Every little transition is so smooth, it's like a beautifully painful dance, and honestly, that's what I want in my modern lucha. I think part of what keeps me engaged for the whole match is the fact that Hechicero doesn't just stick to one body part, but tries to break every piece of Bandito's body, picking him apart like a vulture. This, however, would eventually be what leads to Hechicero losing, as a lack of focus gave Bandito enough room to make a comeback and retain the title. This match feels like a work of art and is one I keep going back to from 2025. Number 6, Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd, New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Dynasty, January 5th. What a comeback match, man. I mean, Kenny had fucking a foot of his intestines removed. Kenny Omega returns not only to wrestling, but to New Japan, and in retrospect, they couldn't have picked a better opponent. The focus is obviously on Kenny as it's his big return, and he does great, running through the classic hits while still reminding us how fucked up his body is through his selling. Not only shows his talent, but his toughness. Gabe Kidd, however, steals the show, making a statement with his New Japan branded trunks, showing that in his own slightly psychotic way deep down, he really cares about the promotion. In Gabe's head, this is a fight for New Japan's pride, and he's willing to defend it with his life. Kenny, on the other hand, is fighting to prove himself and the fans that he still got it. Another classic in him. These two goals manifest in a bloody and physical match worthy of the Tokyo Dome venue. Both men barely go for pinfalls because the match is so much more than that. I mean, it made Tanahashi cry on commentary, for Christ's sake. Try telling him that it wasn't a 5-star match. Number 5, Shuri vs. Sareee, Stardom, The Conversion, June 21st. Yeah, to me it's the best Joshi match of the year. Everything I've said about both these competitors, you can kind of copy and paste into this entry. Look, man, you try writing about 50 wrestling matches. It's hard. Almost as hard as the strikes that these two were throwing at each other. Boom. I'm a fucking writing genius. Let's move on. Number 4, Zack Sabre Jr. vs. Hiroki Goto, New Japan Pro Wrestling, New Beginning, February 11th. This is the type of match you just can't get very often. Goto's 20-year-long hunt for the IWGP title culminating in his fulfillment of his promise to his late father, to celebrating with his kids in the ring is a perfect storybook moment, my favorite thing all year. Watching Goto fight through not just the pain, but the emotion of the match had me on the edge of my seat. The fact that Goto lost so many title matches in his career and his selling made me truly not know who was going to win. Zack is excellent as always, targeting the neck and arm of Goto, creating these pieces of drama that carry the match with his submissions. However, on this night, there was no submission in the world that could stop the Goto Revolution. Best title win all year. Number 3, Mariah May versus Toni Storm, AEW Revolution, March 9th. The term cinema is one of the most eye-rolling, lazy terms to describe a match. But if there was ever a match that lived up to it, it's Toni Storm versus Mariah May. Mariah May gets a bit of shit online ever since jumping to WWE, but she puts on a masterful performance here. She's at once able to be a vindictive and petty monster, as well as a coward that is way over her head in this match. Toni is, of course, also incredible as a mad woman out for revenge. There's everything you want from a wild no DQ match. A power bomb to the outside, Mariah May stealing the Storm Zero piledriver to bust Toni open early. There's chains and chairs, and the standout highlight was the glass spot. Both women dipping their tape fists into the glass, Mariah much more reluctantly, is burned into my mind as more than any other spot all year. What a perfect end to what has to this day been easily AEW's best women's feud in the promotion's history. Number 2, Will Ospreay versus Hangman Adam Page, AEW Double or Nothing, May 25th. While the match with Mox may have been the climax of the Hangman comeback run, it's his match with Ospreay that truly felt like the return of the Cowboy. The two undisputed most over babyfaces in the company square off in Owen Hart Cup final for the right to save AEW from the Death Riders. One of the most hyped matches of the year, and it delivered on every level. I don't think there is a single thing wrong with this match. It's truly terrific. On the rewatch, I was actively looking for, little things to critique, particularly on Ospreay's part. But honestly, this is one of his best-selling performances I've ever seen. Hangman is the perfect complement for Will. He's able to ground things with his more realistic and physical approach, while also being able to keep up with Will when it's time to go crazy with high spots. The tension rises in such a natural way that by the end it feels like two gunslingers in a shootout. Both men draw their weapons, Ospreay the elbow, Hangman the lariat, but the Hangman was just a bit quicker. Hangman vs. Ospreay was the best AEW match of 2025, but there's one match down in Mexico that I just preferred a little bit more. MJF vs. Mystico from CMLL's 91st Anniversario show. The best promotion in the world in their biggest event of the year, in front of the hottest crowd in the world, with two men who at their best are the two greatest babyface and heel workers in the world respectively, went out and delivered the absolute best pro wrestling had to offer in 2025. This match just felt natural, like these two had wrestled 1,000 times before, like they were main eventing every CMLL show for the months leading up. Max with his constant trash talk, slow application of pressure, and perfectly timed cutoffs of Mystico's offense, and Mystico fighting back with all the heart and speed you'd expect, running a brutal blade job beneath his match, turning the iconic white and gold into a dark crimson red as the match progressed. MJF's smug confidence gives way over time to a frustration at the resilience of his opponent. Then, in the final act, the frustration turned into disbelief, as though the cocky American was face to face with a god. And he was. The crowd's pure love of their hero, the passion for Mystico, and that satisfying look of fear when MJF realized he was done for, all mixed into the most satisfying wrestling experience of 2025. This is a true masterpiece, and the type of match that makes you zoom out and just appreciate pro wrestling as an art form. Goddamn, Mystico is awesome, CMLL is awesome, pro wrestling is awesome. I'm so sorry it took till almost all the way through May for this video to come out, but I wanted to do it right, and I just love talking about pro wrestling. What more can I say? See you guys next time.